make or a question that you would like to ask regarding an item that is on the agenda, I would ask you to just hold that, keep your hand down until we actually get to that agenda item. And then if you raise your hand, I'll be able to recognize you at that time. So having said all of that, I'll invite you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we unfortunately had to cancel our executive session this evening, and so we do not have any executive session minutes to seal. That meeting will be rescheduled, hopefully for early next week. So that does bring us to our open public comment period. If there are any members of the public who wish to make a comment, express a concern, or ask a question regarding items not on the agenda, now would be the time to do so. And I'd ask you to use the raise hand function to indicate that you would like to speak. I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time, so we will move on to our next agenda item. Next, we have approval of minutes. We have regular session minutes from August 11th, as well as special session minutes from August 28th. All school committee members were present during both of those meetings, so just a reminder to folks that you were there, so you're free to vote on the minutes if you so choose. But before I entertain a motion, I just wanted to note that on the August 11th minutes, there were some votes taken regarding policies that were not included in the minutes. Mrs. DiMeglio is aware of it. She did forward to me
Rule 7B, reopening plan. I think it's on page 3 of those minutes. About 2/3 of the way down, just before Ms. Musella said she wants the committee to be prepared to stick their heels in the ground, I'd like to add, because my recollection is that I said something with respect to it in fact being the school committee responsibility to approve the reopening. So I'm suggesting that we insert language after Ms. Musella said she believes the decision to reopen lies with the school committee, and she wants the committee to be prepared to stick their heels in the ground, etc.
that comports with my recollection.
Thank you.
So for those who made the motion and seconded it, if that's amenable to you, then I will, is there any other discussion on the minutes? And Ms. DiMeglio, were you able to make that note?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion on the 2 sets of minutes? Seeing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote. All those in favor?
Allison Powell,
Aye.
Ann Musella,
Aye.
Carolyn Mark,
Aye.
Jean Quinn,
Aye.
Jeff Jaronczak,
Aye.
Lori McEwen,
Aye.
Matt Quinn.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The minutes are approved. Thank you. That brings us to our action items this evening. We have a number of homeschool requests. You have information in your packets regarding these homeschool requests. Most of them are recommended for approval this evening, and so I will entertain a motion to approve homeschool request for grade K. For grade 1, there were 2 requests for grade 1. For grade 3, 2 requests for grade 4, 1 request for grade 9, and 1 request for grade 12. Motion to approve those homeschool requests. So moved by Dr. Quinn.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Plain. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just had a question. So we are approving the district's recommendation?
Yes. Yes, the district recommended that we approve the ones that I just cited, and that is what the motion is that's on the table.
Okay.
Ms. Musella, yes?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify that too, because I'm seeing that there are some requests. So just to clarify, that's the 1 grade K, the 2 grade 1, grade 3, 2 grade 4, 1 grade 9, and 1 grade 12. That is the motion? Thank you.
That is correct. Yes. Thank you. Those are the ones that have been recommended for approval. Is there any other discussion? So I'll ask for a roll call vote then.
Allison Powell,
Aye.
Ann Musella,
Aye.
Carolyn Mark,
Aye.
Jean Quinn,
Aye.
Jeff Dronzek,
Aye.
Lori McEwen,
Aye.
Matt Plain.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Those homeschool requests are approved. We do have one other homeschool request before us for grade 8, and it is the district's recommendation that we deny this request. I wonder, Mrs. Meyer, if you might just say a word or two just about the general circumstances. You know, we of course don't want to, discuss individual students, but just generally speaking, what our obligation is with respect to approving homeschool requests and under what circumstances the district administration might not recommend it.
Our obligation is to consider homeschool requests at the district level and to provide that information to you for approval. If there's some question about the application that has been put forth, the district has the opportunity to deny or suggest that the school committee deny that request and seek further clarification based on a placement of the student at a grade level or something of that nature. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. So again, the information is in your packet. So at this time, I would ask for a motion to deny this grade 8 homeschool request.
So moved.
So moved by Dr. McEwen. Seconded by Dr. Quinn. Any discussion? I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Allison Powell,
Aye.
Ann Musella,
Aye.
Carolyn Mark,
Aye.
Jean Quinn,
Aye.
Jeff Dronzek,
Aye.
Lori McEwen,
Aye.
Matt Plain.
Aye.
The ayes have it. That request is denied. Thank you. And I know that the district will be following up with that family to see if there is additional clarification that can be sought. So we may be able to see this one before us again. So that brings us to our next action item this evening. Sadly, a recommendation to accept the retirement of school district social worker Nina Makta. I've had the opportunity to work with Mrs. Makta over the last number of years. Very sad to see her retiring. Excited for her for whatever her next chapter may be. But at this time, I do need to ask for a motion to accept the retirement.
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Musella,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Plain. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Roll call vote.
Allison Powell,
Aye.
Ann Musella,
Aye.
Carolyn Mark,
Aye.
Jean Quinn,
Aye.
Jeff Dronzek,
Aye.
Lori McEwen,
Aye.
Matt Plain.
Aye.
The ayes have it. And Superintendent Meyer, I assume we will have an opportunity to recognize Mrs. Makta at some future meeting, but I don't know if you wanted to say a word or two tonight. You're on mute.
I would very much like the opportunity to say a word or two. I want to express my gratitude to Mrs. Makta. I, like the chair, have worked with her for many years in different capacities as principal, director of teaching and learning, and now as superintendent. She has served our district well. She has guided us many times in helping us to think about how we support children and seek resources outside of our school setting. I do believe she will continue to do that for us and remain in contact with us. So I thank her. I know the district benefited from her time here, and I wish her well in this next chapter too.
Thank you. That brings us to our next action item, which is a resignation. I'm Deborah Marasco, paraprofessional at Frenchtown. I will entertain a motion to accept this resignation.
So moved.
I'm sorry, did we vote on Mrs. Makta?
We did, and then I invited.
Oh, okay.
I know I usually do it in a different order,
Sorry.
but thank you. You always keep me on my toes. So next we have a resignation, Deborah Marasco, paraprofessional at Frenchtown. I'll entertain a motion to accept this resignation. I think Ms. Musella, you were about to make that motion.
So
Thank
moved.
you. So moved by Ms. Musella. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Powell. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye via roll call vote.
Allison Powell,
Aye.
Ann Musella,
Aye.
Carolyn Mark,
Aye.
Jean Quinn,
Aye.
Jeff Dronzek,
Aye.
Lori McEwen,
Aye.
Matt Plain.
Aye.
The ayes have it. I wish Mrs. Marasco well in the future, and I thank her so much for her service in the district. Superintendent Meyer, did you want to say a word?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would love to express some remarks about Deborah Marasco. So she is a paraprofessional, or was a paraprofessional at Frenchtown Elementary School, and loved every minute of being in the classroom. In fact, when we had a brief conversation about her resignation, it was about how disappointed she is and that she won't be with students any longer. However, I did get to know her because her son was a best buddy at Cole when I was principal there and involved in the unified sports. So I had the opportunity to get to know her personally through her son. She was a wonderful gift to our community too, and we will miss her greatly. I thank her for her service.
Thank you for that. Next, we have approval of the contract with Romans Commercial Cleaning to provide additional cleaning and disinfection services. You have both the contract in your packet as well as the RFP that was sent out by Colliers as well. And so I will entertain a motion to approve the contract. So moved by Ms. Powell. Seconded by Dr. Quinn. Thank you. Discussion? Mr. Dronzek.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Thank you, Allison. I know Bob Wilmarth and Mrs. Meyer for putting this together. I know there's a 30-day termination period, but what happens if we have a temporary shutdown? It's not really clear. Is there how do we halt that for a short period of time where maybe we wouldn't need the extra hands to keep things clean, and then we'd go back, and that would eat up some of the 180 days. I understand you could terminate the contract, but then you'd have to re-enter into it, and that could get dicey. So I just didn't know if there was a caveat in there, some way to do that, or is it just we would give the 30-day notice and then get a credit if, things happen 2 weeks later that we were back.
Thank you for that. So I think I'll turn to Councilor Oliverio because
Yeah.
he, of course, was involved in negotiating and crafting this agreement, and there certainly was some back and forth with the contractor. So, Councilor Oliverio, you're on mute.
I apologize. There was some back and forth, and anticipating that could be a scenario, although it wasn't in the RFP necessarily. There is some flexibility built into the contract to redeploy people to other facilities, so that if one school shuts down, we can redeploy that manpower to another school. So we have that capability. I had proposed some language that gave us additional flexibility, but I will tell you that there was some urgency to this because the contractor needed a signed contract before he could deploy all his manpower and resources, and he was committing to the district and to certain employees. So there was back and forth on that language. What is before you is what was consistent with the RFP. I've incorporated all the other terms within the RFP and the conversations that Mr. Wilmarth had with the vendor. So under the circumstances, I think it gives us enough flexibility, but also there's a commitment to this vendor who, responded to the RFP and gathered the resources to help us out. So a little give and take there, but what's before you is what is recommended by the superintendent, Mr. Wilmarth, and myself. So, I mean, you can conceive of any number of scenarios, and we really need to get them into the buildings before schools open. And I understand that they're doing a phenomenal job. So.
I just wanted to check, Matt. It's
Yeah, no,
reasonable
no.
that we could,
Yep.
30 days time is not a long time. We would probably
Yeah.
need them for some portion. And I would think it would fall under the contractual I won't call them requirements, but strong requests within the CARES Act, that if you have a contract that you're going to be honoring it to the extent possible anyway.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
that extra couple weeks could fall in there if we needed it.
Right.
All right. Thanks.
Sure.
Thank you for that. Any other discussion? Ms. Musella?
Thank you, and thanks for the work on this. Just a question. I recall that our approval of this contract was delayed because it wasn't ready for us like a couple of weeks ago. Is that, in my recollection, right? Was that on their end? That right? Because I'm just concerned that what I'm hearing is we should agree to something because now time is sort of the essence, but wasn't the delay kind of on their end? Just want to make sure I understand that dynamic.
I'd have to go back and look at the minutes. I thought it was approved to retain their services subject to review of the final written contract.
Right, in terms that are the most favorable to us. There was some, because there was some talk about this, what Jeff just brought up was sort of contemplated in our discussion at the last school committee meeting. So,
That's
okay.
correct. Yeah.
Just a process question, but I guess we don't really know the answer, but thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor, roll call vote, please.
Allison Powell,
Aye.
Ann Musella,
Aye.
Carolyn Mark,
Aye.
Jean Quinn,
Aye.
Jeff Dronzek,
Aye. Sorry.
Lori McEwen,
Aye.
Matt Plain.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Next, we have approval of district phone upgrades. You have the materials in your packet about the recommendation, and so I'll entertain a motion to approve. So moved by Dr. Quinn. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Powell. Discussion? All those in favor, roll call vote.
Allison Powell,
Aye.
Ann Musella,
Aye.
Carolyn Mark,
Aye.
Jean Quinn,
Aye.
Jeff Dronzek,
Aye.
Lori McEwen,
Aye.
Matt Plain.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you very much. The next action item on the agenda is a request for a vote to dissolve the Transportation Subcommittee and transfer responsibilities back to district administration. Ms. Musella, if it's your pleasure, I was thinking we could simply move the Transportation Subcommittee report, which is on the end of this agenda, up to this agenda item so that you can provide just a little bit of context for the vote that we're going to be taking.
Sure, happy to do it. Thank you. First, I just want to just point out the language in the agenda item, transfer responsibilities back to district administration. I just refer to the transportation charge, which cites the duties of the duties of the Finance Committee Advisory Subcommittee for Transportation shall include, but not be limited to, advising, counseling, assisting, and making recommendations to the Finance Committee on the following matters. Advise the Finance Committee on the district's transportation needs, advise the Finance Committee on the allocation of transportation funding, comment on policies involving school district transportation. So all that said, I just want to make note of that because certainly we were conceived as an advisory body. We dug in, we found some efficiencies, made some recommendations with respect to overseeing our depot and with respect to some administrative procedures within the central office. But it has never been the responsibility of the transportation subcommittee to perform operational role. The problem is where we are now is we're at a point where we're on the verge of sort of crossing that line. The last couple of years, we've had somebody in central office to receive that, but there hasn't been consistency there. So we've had to start from scratch and trying to transfer our knowledge each time. And thankfully, Maggie Baker is now here. So it's definitely time. And the other issue, of course, is that, a public entity is not designed to perform operational roles. So it's very difficult to try to contort the Open Meetings Act to ensure that we comply with open meetings laws while get those things done, getting those things done. So that said, we talked with or communicated with council quickly. There's nothing that precludes central office, Mrs. Meyer or Ms. Baker, from reaching out, establishing a working group if they want on transportation, reaching out to former members on a one-to-one basis, because we are very interested in not losing the efficiencies that we've gained. And I'm going to climb up on my soapbox for a moment. Just, recall that, people have expressed gratitude for the time, and there's been a lot of time and the efforts of the subcommittee, which have included Stuart Peterson, Jeff Dronzik, Michael Fain, Mike Petorsky, Dr. Kate Williams, who's been instrumental and is our, routing brain, and our newest member, Lily Piccione, and on the administrative side, Neil Mercaccio has been extensively involved. My fear, I think, is that people aren't quite sure what we actually did, and so they may not know what to do to ensure that those efficiencies are retained, because without the oversight, we just kind of relied on our bus company to tell us what we needed, and we spent money that we didn't need to on buses when we could have spent them on education. So all of that said, and just in terms of a subcommittee report, I would just really report out that that's what's been happening on a one-off basis, more or less. And subcommittee met, and although we want to, there are some of us who want to keep a tight hold on things because we don't want to lose any of the efficiencies. I think that there's an acknowledgement that this is the way we should go. Therefore, I move to dissolve the transportation subcommittee. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that, Ms. Musella, for all of that, for all of the context that came with that. So we have a motion from Ms. Musella to dissolve the transportation subcommittee, seconded by Mr. Dronzik. Discussion. Dr. Quinn.
I just wanted to echo the thanks of all of us in the district and acknowledge the extraordinary work that's been done by the committee. We're not dissolving it because they didn't do their job. We're dissolving it because the proper organizational structure would put that responsibility in the district. But when there was not adequate staffing in the district, these people really stepped up and they made a huge difference. So I want to thank all of them for their efforts.
Thank you for
Actually, if I
that,
could
Dr.
just
Quinn. Ms. Usella, go ahead.
add one more thing. I just really need, part of the reason we can transfer these, some of these functions is because Dr. Arnoff listened to what we needed when he came on board, and he gave us Joanne Robitaille. And so there are a lot of efficiencies achieved on our end just because of what Ms. Robitaille has been able to do with Aspen and interfacing with the routing. And that's so technical, but it really makes a huge difference. So that also enables us to kind of move forward talking about, infrastructure. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Musella. And I'll just echo Dr. Quinn's remarks. It was not just about time in. This community owes a debt of gratitude to Ms. Musella and all of the members of the Transportation Subcommittee for the hundreds of thousands of dollars that you've saved the school district over the last few years. So I'm very grateful for that. So we do have a motion on the table. So all those in favor, roll call vote, please.
Was there a second?
There was a
I
second.
seconded
It was
it.
seconded by
Sorry.
Mr. Dronzik, appropriately so, seconded by
Just want to
Mr.
make
Dronzik.
sure.
Can I just say though that we also owe a thanks to the East Greenwich Police Department, who was instrumental in helping us through a lot of them. I think it was just neglected.
Yes.
I know Ms. Musella appreciated it as much as I did. They were always there to help us out and guide us through some of the decisions. So
They've been
and
extraordinary.
they will still be
helpful.
involved, just
Yes.
directly with Maggie.
Thank you. And that was completely an oversight. Thank you. I agree.
Thank you for that. So we'll do roll call vote, please.
Alice Powell,
Aye.
Ann Musella,
Aye.
Carolyn Mark,
Aye.
Jean Quinn,
Aye.
Jeff Dronzek,
Aye.
Lori McEwen,
Aye.
Matt Plain.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Next, we have a recommendation to add a school committee meeting on September 29th. This is just an acknowledgement that our first day of school was just yesterday, but that our next school committee meeting is not scheduled until October 6th. And of course, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot that is being implemented and figured out, and we will be needing to make a decision about where we're going to be by mid-October. And so in conferring with the superintendent, it was her recommendation that we have a touch point between now and October 6th, that there'll be some important information and data that we will be able to get by then that will help to inform our conversation on the 6th. So in the spirit of trying to keep everybody up to date and informed about how things are going as a district and what we think we are working toward, it's the recommendation that we add this meeting on the 29th. So with that, I will entertain a motion to add September 29th at 7 p.m. As a school committee meeting.
So moved.
So moved by Dr. McEwen,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Musella. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, roll call vote.
Allison Powell,
Aye.
Ann Musella,
Aye.
Carolyn Mark,
Aye.
Jean Quinn,
Aye.
Jeff Dronzek,
Aye.
Lori McEwen,
Aye.
Matt Plain.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you very much. And that brings us to our final action item this evening. We have a policy subcommittee and a finance subcommittee that have been in search of new members. We did announce the request for interest at our last school committee meeting, and it was also publicized on the district listserv. We did receive interest from a number of community members for both of these subcommittees. So I would like to perhaps start with policy and ask Ms. Musella if she has a recommendation for us this evening in terms of appointing a new public member.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and just start off with a motion, and then if it's seconded, I'd like to add some discussion. I move to appoint Robert Brooks to the policy subcommittee.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Powell. Discussion.
So thank you. Mr. Brooks is, he's an attorney. He is currently the managing partner of the firm Adler, Pollock & Sheehan, is with a focus on labor and employment law. He also is the father of 2 high school students in our district who came up through the district. He has been pretty involved in some of our policy issues as well as school committee doings in general. My experience with him just as a just on a policy level and with his participation as a community member is that he is thoughtful, analytical, methodical, and I think that both his approach and his just real depth of experience will add tremendous value to the policy committee and really just help ensure a good, healthy policy making process. And I think that we're very fortunate that he is willing to offer his time and his expertise.
Thank you for that, Ms. Musella. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, roll call vote.
Allison Powell,
Aye.
Ann Musella,
Aye.
Carolyn Mark,
Aye.
Jean Quinn,
Aye.
Jeff Dronzek,
Aye.
Lori McEwen,
Aye.
Matt Plain.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Mr. Brooks, if you're listening, you are officially appointed to the policy subcommittee, and thank you in advance for all of the good work that I know you will be doing. So that brings us to finance then. I'll turn to Mr. Dronzek for a recommendation.
Thanks. We've also been looking for members for a while. We've had a number of members that were on for a while. Some have dropped off. One of the things we've tried to do over the past couple of years is not focus it on just finance people. We want a good portion of finance people, but it's good to have other backgrounds and information that can be helpful. So I would like to recommend that we approve 3 new members who have sent information to Mrs. Meyer inquiring about being on finance. Dr. Quinn and Ms. Musella and I had an email conversation just so we've all seen it as the 3 members of the finance committee that are on the school committee. One of them, I didn't get to you guys till shortly before the meeting. I had known of the interest for a while, Mrs. Meyer had, but the resume hadn't gotten to all you guys, but I don't think there'll be any issues. So I'd like to recommend Tim Munoz, who is has a strong background in finance, works in the business world and has for many, many years. And then also Tracy Kozakowski, I hope I got her name right, who has a background in the banking industry and compliance within that industry, among other things, and has a couple of kids in the East Greenwich system. And also Catherine Lord, who actually brings one of the pieces where I always like to see a little bit more unique than the finance world. She is a principal in another district and lives in East Greenwich. That's always great because it's a different perspective on the financial needs from an educator and somebody who handles a budget for their own school. So I'd like to recommend we approve all 3 of those people for now.
Thank you, Mr. Dronzek. Is there a second? Seconded by Dr. Quinn. Any discussion? All those in favor, roll call. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Musella.
I think that we're very fortunate also to have these 3 individuals. Thrilled to have them. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a pleasant surprise. We have to say that.
We just make this work look so much fun.
So, and we will have a meeting soon so like everybody can meet Maggie and I can start working on turning things over to whomever takes over.
Okay, thank you. So again, all those in favor, roll call vote.
Allison Powell,
Aye.
Ann Musella,
Aye.
Carolyn Mark,
Aye.
Jean Quinn,
Aye.
Jeff Dronzek,
Aye.
Lori McEwen,
Aye.
Matt Plain.
The ayes have it. Congratulations to our new finance committee members. And again, thank you in advance for all of the good work that you will do. Thank you. That brings us then to our reports of superintendent and staff. And so I will turn to Superintendent Meyer. There's a whole lot to talk about under school reopening. We tried to delineate all of the different areas so that we would not neglect to address any of them that we know will be of interest to members of the committee as well as to the community at large. But I'll turn it over to Superintendent Meyer to take it in whatever order she would like to. Oh, you need to unmute.
My apologies. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the school committee, Mr. Oliverio, and our attendees. I'm happy to give you a report this evening. I will okay, we'll do it that way. That's fine, Dr. Arnoff. We'll start with the presentation and then I'll address the other items. So I'm here this evening to give you an update of our opening, and 2 days in. There's much to celebrate. I want to bring everybody's attention to the website because really, and the link is there. Please go to our website because you will find everything you need to find, information about opening our schools. This picture is the Meadowbrook crew this morning, getting ready for those first buses to come and ready to welcome students. Those drawings that are on the pavement were done by parents, and they're chalk drawings, and they go all the way up the sidewalk. It's pretty impressive. So here we go, Dr. Arnoff, if you will go to the next slide. So health and safety. As you know, we have a lot of different protocols in place for opening our schools. I have Nurse Wilson in the upper corner there, all decked out and ready to welcome kids on the first day. I want to draw your attention to the picture in the lower corner where you see some chairs with what are really dividers, so that if a student presents and has symptoms, they will go into that area. They have sort of plexiglass type of rolling walls in between them where the nurses can do an assessment. And then this information on the right is updated information about how we can contact the Rhode Island Department of Health that was just provided to districts yesterday. The emergency number for testing and the Rhode Island Education Operations Center, which is operating under the governor's orders to provide any kind of support to districts that are needed. They refer to themselves as the EDOC. They are available and ready to answer the phone call if we need it. I called them today, in fact. I do want to bring people's attention to the attestation. It is required that an attestation gets filled out every morning by staff and anybody coming in our building, but also our students. That information is on the website. It is been shared through all the forums, and there's a video that directs you to how to get into Aspen, fill out the form, and submit it. Today, we did not have 100% compliance with the attestation submission, so we will be reaching out directly to folks to remind them. I asked the principals actually to send it on their listservs this evening to remind folks to do that. Everybody has to wear masks. I haven't seen anybody that was not compliant. I was in all of the schools, and kids came in with the greatest looking masks you ever saw. And I very much enjoyed that. And then emergency contact information is critical. And that is submitted this year through Aspen. That information is on the website. We're doing a really great job of that. Actually, Mrs. Robitaille has been reaching out directly through our Aspen portal to families to remind them, please update that information. Should we have, our nurses are in contact and have been supported by the Rhode Island Department of Health. They are well aware of the protocols, and they are well aware of how to respond should a student present with symptoms. In fact, there were, certainly kids that came to the nurse's office today and that needed to be seen. So that seems to be moving along very nicely. The spaces in all the buildings were created in compliance with the guidance, and they seem to have a nice flow to that work. Next slide. The facility slide. So if you look at all of the buildings have traffic patterns, if you will, or yellow dividers. Some have added the nice red to it as well to mark the hallway so that students are walking in a one-way direction, walking on the right as they're going so they don't cross paths. They walk single file so that, and they have the necessary space between and among them. So this is a picture of the Eldridge hallway. They also have, you can't see them very well in this picture, but they have little stickers that have arrows and round red circular dots directing the children to walk in that manner. Classrooms today, this is the Cole classroom. As you can see, children are, this was, they first had come in this morning, so they are sitting, very nicely. They were happy to be back in school. It was great to see them be back in school. And we have, that's with, again, 50% of the students attending, and that's the type of spacing we have. On Friday, I received the letter from the Rhode Island Department of Health. Well, it's actually signed by the commissioner and Dr. Alexander Scott regarding our facilities walkthrough. When they sent the letter to me, there was nothing attached. There were no checklists. But I put the arrow so you can see, following the visit to your school district, you should have seen that we didn't get a completed checklist on that day, but I did. This letter is to inform you that we do not need any additional information from you, and we wish you a success with the upcoming school year. So that is a letter. If district needed to reply or make some adjustments, it would have been noted in the letter there. However, in the next slide, I break down the checklist a little bit for you. I had to ask for the checklist. I got the checklist yesterday. So all of our schools were visited on September 8th. On the checklist are 38 questions. Number 19 question is, does each room have enough clean air from the central HVA system? And I put that here because as I go through the next, and the answer on every checklist at every school was yes. We had yeses to every question on that checklist at all of our schools with the exception of the following. Number 6, we don't use hand sanitizer in the district with alcohol. Number 15, has the HVA system been balanced recently? So HVA systems are balanced when they are newly put in. It's not a regular part of the process. The EDOC confirmed that with us, but Mr. Wilmarth had Kyle Baker company come in and review our calculations to make sure that, they were consistent with the airflow and how the balancing should take place. All vents and portals for the entry of outside air are wide open. And then our HVA system has regular service every year from our contractor, ESI. The other question that was a no, does each room have a portable HEPA filter to supplement airflow? The answer is no, we don't need the HEPA air filters. However, Mr. Wilmarth has purchased some for certain locations in our buildings. And then this is why I called them. Number 26, the school restricted access to the use of any classroom or workspace that doesn't have access to fresh air or properly filtered air. And the answer to that is no. But I refer you back to question 19. So when I asked them that, it was because we don't need to restrict. We don't have any rooms that require restriction. So I said, well, maybe you probably should have put not applicable rather than no. But anyway, I confirmed that no meant that. And we can certainly make the checklist available to the public if they so choose. And that's the report on the facilities. Okay, school meals. So for Aramark, we have been approved under the USDA for continued free meals for our students through December 31st. So that means that any student, regardless of any kind of criteria, may have access to free lunch and breakfast. So these two folks are at Hannaford here, our Aramark staff, and they are there in the morning handing out breakfast to those students that wish to have breakfast. And the lunch and breakfast is very much like a grab and go this year, packaged meals. So for students that are distance learners, they have access to lunch as well, breakfast too, for that matter. That can be picked up at Eldridge and Frenchtown, both of those schools, from the hours of 11:30 to 12:30, and they're again available to all students. Also, weekend meals are available. So weekend meal packages will be available on Fridays at the Eldridge and Frenchtown location, and Mrs. Edwards is working on the best way to distribute those, whether or not we should take orders, but I think it's, for the first couple of weeks, those will be available for pickup, and we'll see how that goes. And that will include breakfast and lunch meals from Aramark, our great partners. Next slide. So transportation, and this is my opportunity to thank Ms. Musell and Mr. Dronzak and all of the folks that have done all of the groundwork and all of this for many years. And Maggie is just, sort of functioning on their coattails, and they are fueling us with being able to respond to the necessary questions. So, there were very few students on the bus because we only have a 50% attendance right now at the elementary level, at all levels, but they seem to roll quite well, quite smoothly. They were on time. I was in just about every school. There was a backup at Meadowbrook because the way they had the parents queued up, the buses were waiting in the parent line rather than passing by to the left. But they after some time, they realized that, and they came to the left, and that seemed to move forward nicely. Everybody exits out of Meadowbrook through the high school. That made that traffic flow go well. The same for Hannaford. They opened up that gate, and they're going out the neighborhood, so that worked well, too. There were a lot of parent cars. There's no doubt about that. At Eldridge, they have them queued up down Friendship Street, but they waited there, and it seemed to go well. There were walkers, and there were bikers, and there were parents bringing their children to school. So it was a very sweet morning, both yesterday and today. So I checked with Ocean State Transit. I only had one call. And I know that Maggie, Mrs. Baker, sends information to me. I only had one phone call about somebody that didn't have a bus, but the bus had gone there. It was just a mix-up with the family. So I thought that was successful today. Okay, next slide. Technology. So I called our representative from CDW today, and I said, what's the latest update on those 1,000 Chromebooks that we ordered? He reports to me the same thing that he reports to Dr. Arnoff regularly, that we are still slated for an October delivery. We ordered from Acer. It's a simple supply and demand issue with them being able to push out that many Chromebooks. I'm hopeful that we'll have an October delivery, but frankly, he doesn't sound all that convincing. So I'm going to be cautiously optimistic about that. Dr. Arnoff pushed out a survey for student Chromebooks, and they have worked very hard to respond to that survey. But not having those Chromebooks that we ordered, is a challenge for us, because we can't supply all of the Chromebooks that need to be in the hands of our students at home and have enough in our school settings. That's disappointing for me, and I know for everybody as we are trying to do that. This slide isn't coming all the way, but if you need, this information too is on the website in terms of how to get help with Chromebook support. We had some challenges today with some Google Meets and some drops in the Meets. We're trying to diagnose that. It wasn't exclusive to our district, because I've had conversations with other districts. I think part of this may be that the amount of traffic that is going to Google and all of these other, even Zoom, people that were using Zoom, I guess you have to get used to the volume. I don't have that technological skill, but we do have people assessing our networks, and we're going to have the engineers in the district tomorrow to take a little bit of closer look at, see what's going on and making sure our traffic is going to the right locations. So they'll be in district tomorrow. I had a conversation with them this afternoon, along with Dr. Arnoff. Next slide. Student services. Student services are doing building-based teams to develop service plans for students specific to their learning needs. So you may have recalled in some of our opening plans, we talked about students that might attend 4 days and might attend 5 days at the start. So that's primarily what those plans are centered around, and any other, individualized needs for our students. Virtual IEP meetings are being held. And then Student Services has a data collection sheet and a collaborative individualized distance learning plans for those students that are distance learners. We have some of our students that have special services that are continuing to learn from a distance. So they're working on all of that. And then next slide. I wanted to, if you take a look at this list, and this was on our new hire welcome, we have welcomed a lot of new people to our district. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to formally welcome them all. Mrs. Baker's been here for a little while, so welcome. Heidi Banville will be teaching mathematics at the high school. Jillian Bodoff is a paraprofessional. Beth Canning, special education at Meadowbrook. Kelly Cleary is back, and she is at Eldridge. Jennifer Denicourt is at Frenchtown. Katie Eminger is at Meadowbrook. Erin Godin is at Cole. Ariana Greco is at Cole. Cynthia Hawkins is at Cole. Ken Hopkins is our principal at the high school. Chris LeBlanc is teaching special education at Cole. Joyce Labossinier is our new payroll clerk. Rebecca Levine is at Frenchtown. Hannah Majarian she's returning. She had some one-year-only positions. She's returning to Eldridge. Jonathan Mendelson, our new assistant principal at the high school. Emma Matrano is a speech and language, and she is going to be at several of the elementary schools. Heather Moon returns as our teacher of multilingual learners. Faith Norton is the social worker. Janet Patrone, special education at Cole. Marissa Pernice, special education at Eldridge. Juliana Ritchie, a paraprofessional at Frenchtown. Gina Sicoscio, welcome Gina, she is science at Cole. Austin Sadler, special education at Meadowbrook. Madison Sporer is kindergarten at Meadowbrook, I think. Jennifer Tedeschi, special education at the high school. David Tober, our new Cole principal. And there is one I have left off here, and it's our new third grade teacher at Hannaford that I believe started today. So that was a whole lot of people we hired, and yes, we do. EG does shine. So welcome, everybody. We wanted to welcome you here to our district. We're happy to have you here and ready to take on 2020, 2021 school year together. And then, does anybody have questions for that before I go to just the other couple of other items that are on my update?
Dr. McEwen?
Yeah. I do. I have a couple. I can certainly wait till the end, but I see we're at the end of A. First of all, thank you for the welcome to everyone. Great slide, and it is difficult that we can't, welcome everyone as we usually do. So that's wonderful. I don't know all the teachers and paraprofessionals, payroll clerks who've been added, but I have already heard great things about our new administrators, already dealing with issues that have come up very calmly and wonderfully. And the opening video with Mr. Hopkins and Dr. Mendelson was quite fun. I'm glad they let us know that was a speeded up video and not
yes.
not tearing fast through the parking lot. So thank you. But I know Dr. Mendelson, I have no doubt that was his actual sprint speed. My question is about the Chromebooks. It's clearly on everyone's mind. And I know that we are in the same boat with so many others. So there's no laying blame here or anything like that, but there is a real wondering about what we are doing then instead, what the backup plans are, if we have an idea of how long it's going to be in the interim plan. And I think you said 1,000 Chromebooks?
That's correct.
And so those are Chromebooks that
we ordered.
Is it that students don't have access at all, or is it is there a difficulty now that some students may have to share or that they can't take home? Or are we just absent a huge number of Chromebooks for instruction?
So we asked for folks to fill out that survey. We communicated that if you have a device at home that you are able to use, please do so in this interim phase. Just fill out the form if you don't have any other option. So what some of the workarounds that we have done, well, so Cole, for example, which I can explain as a workaround, we distributed, or Dr. Arnoff in the technology department distributed all the ones that they had requests for. We emptied carts that were, and we were not one-to-one at Cole for number-wise. So we have carts in world language, we have carts in the library. We had enough devices in the team carts to support all in-person kids. So a student will come in the morning, get a Chromebook out of the cart, and then take that Chromebook to all of their classes and then return it to the cart. Now that means disinfecting and all of that. That's another whole story. But that way we were able to supply enough at home in this stopgap and have enough in the building for the kids that need it. Frenchtown, for example, distributed all the Chromebooks to the kiddos that need them, but we don't have a supply in the building. So that's problematic, but you know, we're according to Dr. Arnoff, and he can probably give you a little bit more, with the number of Chromebooks that we have in the district, we're about 400 short to be a one-on-one, and maybe 500 short to say that, but in all fairness. So we're trying every workaround possible, borrowing devices from some schools, doing, borrowing from other schools. I will say I should be giving a shout out to our library media specialists, because they work at rapid speed to be able to get these devices out to kids. And some of them were working Saturday night very late, and I only know that because I had to go set the alarm in the building. And they really deserve a shout out, as does Zach and Dr. Arnoff and everybody that has been running around, scurrying around. But, we can't deny that, that shipment, our plan was reliant on that shipment so that everybody had a device.
Thank you. And I wouldn't be surprised if people watching this, parents hearing about it, just think, oh, can we just donate any laptop? And I know that obviously there are concerns about what we put on our system and what we allow for all kinds of cybersecurity reasons and whatnot. So this is a problem that needs to be dealt with by getting Chromebooks from in some authorized way.
Correct. I mean, we even pondered, seeking, not donations, but could we borrow some from somewhere? And individuals can't even buy them. The Chromebooks, you can't get a Chromebook. It's very difficult.
Right. I think way back in the spring, I had heard of a district, and this was in another state, having some extras that they were ready to discard that were at least usable enough. But that was back in the spring. I would assume if you're hearing the same thing around the state, that.
I know North Kingstown ordered 3,500, and they're waiting for their delivery too. The demand, it just became something that it's unfortunate and certainly disappointing to me.
I'm going to stop there. I don't need to belabor this, but one of the things that we might get to later, and it could be at the end of this report, or I was going to make a suggestion for future agenda items, but I think it's close enough to this, Madam Chair, that I'm going to, and you can tell me if I can stay on this tack, but if we are going to meet on the 29th, at that point or sometime around there, I know that we're evaluating how things are working both at home and in school. Number of questions to be asked, and some that, I'd even be happy to share offline, but about engagement with the work, both inside and outside, what parents report, what students report, the social emotional connections as well as the learning. And then we might see what, if any, impact this has, so that we can just be well informed on the 29th if possible.
Sure.
Thank you for that. Absolutely. Thank you. Ms. Misella?
Sure. Thank you. And Mrs. Meyer, thank you for all of that. That was really thorough. I really appreciate all of that. A couple of things. I'm not quite sure where to start. It's still not clear to me. What does eDoc help with? That what do they do?
So they have an office, and they are, my understanding is they are National Guardsmen, the majority of them, that are not working in their civilian jobs right now. And they are available to do whatever it is you need. So I did ask of them when they met with us, they said, what do you need? I said, do you have any Chromebooks? And they said, no, we don't have any Chromebooks. I said, well, if you know of anybody that might, that's really what we need right now. But they are meant to be there. I don't have a job description. Call up and say, we need X, and they're going to try to figure it out for you, I guess.
Thank you.
And they have, I'm sorry, they just, so our folks that we met with, one was an emergency room nurse, another was a state police officer, and the third one was a teacher. So they bring that kind of expertise to the eDoc.
Thank you for that. Just on transportation, I just really appreciate the fact that you said something about the transportation subcommittee fueling central office. The fact that you're now using bus puns is a really good sign, and it bodes well for the transition. So I thank you for that. I just also want to, on the student services side, developing service plans and virtual IEP meetings are being held. Where are we? I mean, I think I asked this at a few school committee meetings ago. Where are we in terms of how many meetings and plans will already have been developed in terms of the start of the school year? Are we on track? Are we behind? Are we, because I know that there was a delay in IEP meetings, I think, over the summer that were COVID related, or there was a backlog or something. Can you address how we are in terms of meeting with all the students we should and getting their plans in comparison with maybe a normal year?
Sure. I mean, I can give you some general information. What I can say is IEP meetings don't typically happen in the summer. So IEP meetings were held throughout our, COVID springtime virtually, and they went very successfully. The difference for us this year, and I think for certainly parents with students that have IEP services, because our year is structured so differently, as we talk about the partial, part of the students attending and 4-day students and 5-day students, those, service plans became what was critical in determining, who was going to attend on the 4 days. It was really, they were certainly discussions, if you will, or whether it was a phone conversation with Dr. Hughes about, if, the services are being provided. Some parents didn't want, they only wanted to do the 2 days. Some wanted to do the 4 days. So certainly we weren't going to force kids. But my understanding is, IEP meetings were held in the spring based on when they were due. And, we don't have a summer IEP team necessarily in place. So we didn't have summer IEP meetings.
Thank you. Sorry.
You're welcome.
Also, I just sort of echo Dr. McEwen's point on a couple of points. I mean, at this meeting on the 29th that we're going to have, presumably that's when we really sort of evaluate and make a decision with respect to opening up our elementary schools to, 100% or whatever that really is. A couple of things. I appreciate all the detail on the walkthroughs. I guess before that time, we'd also just want to make sure that we have an understanding of all of our rooms and what the capacity issues are with respect to 100% and where the problem ones are, so that we're aware, kind of what all of our rooms look like. Number two, as I think many of us have, I heard from a lot of parents just today. There's a concern with yes, engagement in the virtual learning, but I think we also need to really look at communications with parents. As this is happening, I think that the focus should be even on the elementary students, because I think that the high school students are more used to working independently. I think that there are a lot of opportunities. I have a lot of concerns with respect to conflicting communications, unclear messages. If parents can't follow the instructions that are given, how is an elementary student, how can they be expected to follow instructions? And I think that, and this is not, I think this is a district or school-wide issue, because I think that perhaps our teachers may need more support than maybe they've been given. But I've gotten a lot of feedback about just communications, just basic communications, and I'm very concerned. So on the other hand, you know, there's also a lot of positive from today. So thank you.
Thank you. So is there any other discussion regarding what Mrs. Meyer has presented thus far? We do have one hand raised, and so before I invite Mrs. Meyer to touch on the other couple of items that are in her superintendent's report, I just want to see if the committee itself has anything else. Ms. Powell, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to echo what Ms. Musella said about communication. I know that everyone's been working incredibly hard. There are a ton of moving parts, and everyone has been pulled in a lot of different directions trying to make this work right now. But I think that it will be very important for everybody to make sure that, you know, families are getting responses to communication, and that they families, parents, students are understanding, you know, what is expected of them every day, in a clear way, and that we follow up with any confusion as quickly as we can. I know that's difficult, but I also think it's really important, because I too had a lot of feedback, some fantastic and others just kind of all over the place. So, and I think just good communication is going to be the key to smoothing that out. So.
Thank you for that. So I'm going to go to the one member of the public who has their hand up, and is this Jim Meyer? Welcome.
All right, guys, how we sound?
You're doing good.
You sound great. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you. Superintendent Meyer, if I could ask a couple questions with respect to the technology piece. Is there an appetite within the district administration for creating a subcommittee, a technology subcommittee that can address some of the issues that Ms. Musella has mentioned, Ms. Powell has mentioned? As we mentioned today, there were some struggles. Some teachers really kind of got their butt kicked in the classroom today, because this was our first game day, having kids in front of us, having kids at home, and trying to navigate the new environment. Everybody knows we're going to stumble. There's going to be some obstacles. We're going to struggle at first, but I think we're really missing an opportunity to communicate, not just within the district as teachers, but also within the district and the community as a whole, to try and target some of those problems that we literally cannot see at home. Is there an appetite for generating a subcommittee, much like the transportation subcommittee, to address some of these issues?
So, Jim, with regard to certainly there is an appetite for a technology subcommittee. We've had some preliminary conversations about that, you know, in the most recent day, but that's different from the transportation subcommittee. You know, an in-district committee would be different. The transportation subcommittee was a formal committee under the district school committee, and is subject to open meeting laws and all of that. I don't think you're probably interested in something like that, where we would have to have a public body, but certainly technology subcommittee should be reconstituted. We have one, in fact, and we have a charge for that, I believe. So yes, and I know today was difficult in some places, and we have engineers coming in tomorrow and meeting with folks, but it wasn't strictly a district issue. Google was having some issues. You can see right on their website, they are reporting that. So it is a combination. I mean, the network looked like it was functioning well, but we'll have those engineers in tomorrow and get a little bit more information.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you. So I think with that, Mrs. Meyer, if you want to move on to your other couple of items.
Sure, be happy to. Regarding future schedule for budget reports, Mrs. Baker and I will, and she will be in the subsequent meetings giving you updates around, that initial projection we did with regard to our PPE and what we've had to spend with that and where we are. So that should be forthcoming, I would say, at the October 6th meeting. And also at the October 6th meeting, I will be presenting my goals. Finally, we will get there after we've gotten through this opening, and I look forward to being able to do that. I've had feedback from school committee members, Mr. Plain, Mr. Dronzak, and who else did I have a conversation with? One other member, but anyway, I've taken that feedback, thought about it deeply, and will be working with Dr. McEwen as I refine my goals and prepare to present to all of you on October 6th.
Great, thank you for that. So that does bring us to our teaching and learning topic for this evening, which is regarding professional development. But before we go there, I just wanted to thank you again, Superintendent Meyer, for the report tonight, and just pause for a second and just appreciate the fact that here we are sitting on the evening of our second day of school. When I think about the mountains that this district and this community has had to climb to get to where we are, we all just owe a great deal of gratitude to you, Mrs. Meyer, for your leadership in these uncertain times, and to every administrator, faculty, staff member. It's been a long haul, and it's just, I don't know, I'm sitting here just feeling and appreciating, even with the challenges that we still have and that we are going to continue to have, how much work has been done. And yet at the same time, how many wonderful people have been onboarded. It's been a remarkable time, and I think there is a lot to celebrate, and clearly still a lot to work through. So we've talked a bit about teaching and learning with respect to students and some of the challenges that we have and some of the things that we need to look at moving forward. We thought it would be a good opportunity, though, for the committee and the community to get a window into some of the wonderful professional development work that has been going on with faculty and staff. And so I think we're welcoming Mr. Pedraza as a panelist who will help to fill us in on some of that work that he has been leading.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee, members of the public. Thank you for inviting me to give this presentation. It's fantastic to work on this, as this feels like normal school, even though we're preparing for not normal school. But it's again, that teaching and learning piece and the passion that our educators brought to the table for the opening of school was fantastic, and definitely helped springboard us into all of the things that, whether they got to them digitally or not today because of tech issues, they definitely were ready technologically, pedagogically, and as well as in person. And so hopefully the professional development that they experienced to start school aided in that process. I did give Dr. Arnoff a few slides. Next slide, please. So the professional development that was put in place, that we do have a professional development subcommittee. While we were talking about that existed last year, that committee was reconvened, as well as the discussions that happened with all of the reopening that had to occur, as well as some of the aspects that we talked about in terms of the professional development that was needed, looking at surveys of staff, as well as the parent surveys, and taking all of that information and trying to figure out what is or what was needed. And what was needed in some cases was very similar in terms of reestablishing our core foundationally for what distance learning, if we need to go to it, but that we needed to first prepare for that, and we wanted to really build on a strong foundation and make sure everybody had a strong foundation. So we have every grade level and school represented here. Next slide, please. But really what we needed to, what we tried to design was not only the needs of our educators for what they needed, but what we think that everybody needed in terms of the education that's going to be delivered this school year and what really is going to get us through, regardless of whether you are a teacher, a paraprofessional, or a student. And we've tried to embed that mission with our educators and paraprofessionals, where we talked about in our reopening report that whilst we could focus on this idea of deficits, starting off with deficits and what people didn't do wasn't going to catapult us moving forward. So we purposefully designed to differentiate professional development to meet people where they are, to give all levels of whether you're an expert at technology or whether really you need to start at, we need to start with, as Dr. Mercurio would refer to, the Google. And we would get back into some of those foundational skills, but no judgment. Let's get you what you need to know, not what we think you need to know or what we think you should know at this point. Let's provide as many opportunities to have you engage deeply and learn with what you feel, where you feel that you are. What we also wanted to do was, honor the humanity. In many cases, this was a lot of people's first time back into school buildings. It was the first time back in with lots of individuals for a prolonged period of time, and that there's some stress with that, as well as the stress of the unknown. But that we wanted to make sure that we honored where people were and that people took time for themselves so that they can fully engage in that work and realize what they're going through. And then last but not least, to promote generosity, to say, okay, either things went really well last year, or things didn't, and that's okay. But we're going to continue to grow, and we're going to grow with one another, and we're going to share, and we're going to take risks, and we're going to be there to support one another. And so hopefully, we see that embedded in the professional development, and most importantly, the time that was offered to teachers, as I'm sure Dr. McEwen will know from all of her work, is that whenever we survey professionals, what do they want? They want time. They want time with their colleagues. They want time with their content. They want time to explore. And the professional subcommittee, development subcommittee, I believe honored that very well. So next slide, please. So on the third, we said, listen, as much as people want time and we need to take care of buildings and we need to test out technology and we need to get rooms set up, there are some foundational aspects to this school year that we want rock solid. And the first part, again, getting back to that, we want our teachers to be able to model what we're asking of students, is we started off with an asynchronous playlist for our teachers. And we said that you can have the day, you can put in your 6.5 hours, and you can focus on this playlist of wherever you are. But it needs to be about a foundational technological aspect that we are going to rely on this school year, that the district both purchases and that the district can support. And so we created a playlist about Google. It could have been everything from getting Google beginner certification or level 1 certification, or getting level 2 certification. Or if that was too much, there was a one-day class run by Google, a one-day course. But even if that was too much, if you just wanted to play around and see what was new in Google Classroom, there were modules on that. And all of that was Google supported. The next aspect of Google was, we know that educators like spending time with other educators. So we ran, as part of Title II, we are working with New England Basecamp to provide some of the ongoing professional development that's going on. They've developed a series of differentiated playlists on different topics that also result, once completed, in 2 PLUs. so they have some that were about Google, and so we put them onto that playlist so that people could get the certificate for the PLUs from New England Basecamp, so that they could engage with New England Basecamp for the first time, as well as to focus in on a certain aspect. So they could have done Google Forms, but for formative and summative assessment. They could have done a Google Basecamp professional development on setting up their Google Classroom. Then next, what we did is the foundational aspect that the early elementary came back to us with, is that they saw, no pun intended, Seesaw as being a tech platform that really spoke, and that our younger students, that was more developmentally appropriate for them. And so the district is supporting pre-K through 2 this year with Seesaw. So we gave them an opportunity to work in a foundational, to work in an asynchronous environment with resources provided by Seesaw, as well as then, if they were already engaged in Seesaw at their own time, a playlist of 45 different things of how-to that they could incorporate. But then if all of a sudden it was a matter of, okay, that people felt they had the tech tools down, but it was more of the pedagogy, it was more of the structure of how they were going to run their distance learning this year, we also had a full course that folks could enroll in, from Ditch Your Textbook. And it was Remote Learning 101, and just an opportunity to go in and rethink, again, the structure, the content, the check-ins, and see how other educators had done that. Next slide, please. And I'll go through these next slides rather quickly. So we are in the midst, on Friday, a professional development subcommittee or feedback was put out there. We currently have 88 teachers who have responded to that, but hopefully you see both in these questions, not only the core values of what we wanted to get across, but also the best ideas of what we know about adult and learning in general. So we asked questions about professional autonomy. Next slide, which we see overwhelming what they had. That there was clarity about what was being offered and why, was very clear to those who have responded so far. Next slide, please. Here, on the first one, probably because it was asynchronous, and people could go wherever they wanted. The collaboration was a little spread out across the board. What we did do in the setup of this professional development was we did put hyperlinks so that folks could connect their new ideas if they had a new idea about how they might be using Google or what they wanted to see in Seesaw, that there was almost a back channel for folks to participate in. But that was not fully utilized in some cases, or something that we can do to improve that collaboration and asynchronous moving forward. But still, we still have more than half of folks feeling that they had opportunities to collaborate with others. Next slide, please. They had the resources necessary to get and have the professional development delivered. Next slide, please. They had enough time and overwhelming, and then just so folks know, and I'm sorry, it was number 1 was strongly disagree, with 5 being strongly agree. My apologies for not setting that baseline ahead of time. Next slide, please. So one of the most important ones to me that also comes back is people want to see that what's being offered in professional development, some of the things is, does it pertain to my content, or does it give me a strategy that I can take away with and use? And again, overwhelming, at least on these 68 responses this morning, we see an overwhelming majority of folks feeling that it did further their professional skills and knowledge, which is definitely one of the core aspects as well of any professional development. Next slide, please. Then I'll focus in now on the 9th, where we started to differentiate some more around what each grade level in school is facing. So at the secondary level, we ran what's called an ed camp model, really focusing in on what teachers want and what they feel that they need, as well as relying on one another and collaborating with one another to meet those needs so that ultimately they have a support system that they're building in place within buildings or across grade levels. With pre-K opening up fast and furious in full, at least in that plan, they wanted and needed that team time together. At grades K2, who had previously last year just implemented EL, we focused in and brought in an outside provider, same that was provided in the last year, to focus in on, okay, EL at a distance and how to use their flex curriculum in the event of, again, a full remote or a hybrid environment. But in grades 3 through 5, we're still moving forward with our EL implementation. This is our first year. Unfortunately, last year they received Intro to Module 1 on the 13th of March. So if folks remember, on the day that the governor declared school, we were fortunate actually that we had a professional development day on that day, and many folks got to prepare what we were thinking was going to be a week or a couple of days of some kind of emergency lesson plans. Well, in grades 3 through 5, they were getting their first introduction to EL. So we needed to reset that this year and make sure that what was done last year, given what everything had done and everyone had gone through, that we reset and get a positive frame. So they received EL, the intros to module 1 and 2, and actually their professional development continued on the 10th to include EL at a distance. So grades 3 through 5 received extensive contracted professional development on the new EL curriculum. And then we brought in paraprofessionals and wanted them to experience that asynchronous environment and give them the opportunity to focus in on their skills, not just technological, but also in terms of student support. So we ran an asynchronous professional development for our paraprofessionals on that foundational tech, again, Google, from New England Basecamp, as well as with Seesaw, so that they can support our teachers, fully engage and use those foundational skills. But what we also brought in was some courses by Bridge RI. What we made is to register for those, and MTSS, or the multi-tiered support systems, an introduction. We also opened up or asked them to take a look at understanding trauma, what our students and what we all may have been going through or have gone through over the course of this shutdown, and how to effectively deal with that. We also made available Intro to Reading for grades K through 5, with so many of our paraprofessionals supporting our earliest learners, as well as EL coming in. We still want to make sure that our support staff can, again, contribute to the foundational skills. And then last but not least, how to manage some escalations. Again, it's been about six months since we've interacted with kids. And so we want to make sure that our paraprofessionals, who are always on the front lines with our teachers, feel comfortable also engaging with students wherever they may be, as well as with the technology. Next slide, please. So in an ed camp, this is the secondary ed camp. The great thing about ed camp is that those who are in the room decide. And it was an interesting one. While we had folks at Cole, but then we also had folks at the high school. And we saw them collaborating. We saw some folks at the high school actually go to rooms in the high school and work on this professional development, while at the same time working with folks who weren't in the room, who were at Cole, and vice versa. So really that hybrid environment really came together in that ed camp, and allowed our faculties to really practice with one another. But if you take a look at all of these sessions that came up, there's no way in any other format outside of going to going to a larger conference where these are going on all the time, that we could have possibly, brought someone in to take care of this or planned this all for one day. And so what I'm really proud of is that how the ed camp sessions ran, our teachers did it for themselves. They did it to support one another. And I could take folks through the process of how we did it, but it was a collaborative process. It was a reflective process. Put something up on a board that you want to learn more about. Put something up on the board that you'd be willing to teach someone about. Puts up on the board an idea that you want to try this school year, and collaborated around those. And then they went out and they built these sessions on their own. So everything from, you know, different technology to practicing with one another to assessments, to formative assessments, to, hey, come talk to the humanities team, the 10th grade humanities team, and see what we're doing this year, and listen to us about our ideas and maybe how you could do that. We also had those, I need to connect with parents. What are some ideas that we could better connect with parents and engage students? So again, a huge shout out to all of the secondary educators who not only proposed these, but made them happen as well. Next slide, please. So same questions go through, but this would also include the paraprofessionals and also includes now the wide variety. These results can be broken down by grade level or by school, but I didn't do that in this presentation. But these results, as well as the warm and cool feedback that teachers had, will be given to the professional development subcommittee. So as we move forward to plan. So again, the autonomy is there, even though in many cases we have outside providers, we have a definitive, the EL curriculum you need to get your professional development on that. And I've heard people that not only do they need it, but also that they wanted it. And so we see, again, that overwhelming majority for autonomy. Next slide, please. Clarity about why it's being offered. Again, everybody saw the rationale clearly communicated, so usually leads to better engagement or fuller engagement. Next slide, please. They felt, here we see that collaboration. Again, in many cases, some of the skewed models, they didn't have as many times if they were in the asynchronous playlist, potentially with the paraprofessionals. Again, I haven't broken it down, but again, what I have seen is that even with the EL, how they organize themselves into groups and into grade levels, there was opportunities there to collaborate. Next slide, please. The resources were readily available for the majority of folks. Next slide, please. And the time that was given was sufficient. Next slide, please. And again, that one of the key aspects, the opportunity to further professional skills and their knowledge. Again, well over 50%, well over 60 or 70% of folks feeling that that day and that time was of good use to them professionally is something that obviously we always strive for. Next slide, please. So next steps are, I'm going to continue to keep on trying to get some more responses to this feedback, obviously with the start of school and with building orientations that also took part that week. I want to make sure to step back and give people time so that they can get our kiddos into the building and get school off safely. But at the same time, I'm also going to keep on doing that because we don't want people to lose memories of that. And we want to make sure that that feedback is accurate. But so that's those numbers have already continued to go up even since this survey or this slideshow was created this morning. In September, we're really focusing in on, okay, let's identify those building needs. Again, that safety, security, those operations, as well as let's go back to those foundational aspects. Now that we're tiering in, okay, what's working well in your Google Classroom? What can Seesaw do that it's not doing? Okay, now what's the feedback that we're getting from students and engagement? So in September, we're still going to focus in at the building level, the health and safety level, and some of those core foundational aspects. We'll also reconvene the professional development subcommittee. And moving forward, we're also going to revisit the reopening assurances, everything from special populations to making sure that we can expand those MTSS offerings, as well as in our reopening plans, we have things such as progress monitoring and universal screens and the STAR data and the implementation that needs to happen. I believe it's in every school's reopening plan. And so that we're going to make sure that we get people the professional development that they need, both to implement as well as use that data to the benefit of our students. And next slide, please. And with that, that is my report, and I'm happy to take on any questions at this time.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Pedraza. I think that was a wonderful window into what's been happening with professional development. So we really do appreciate it. I'll go ahead and open it up to members of the committee for any questions or comments you may have.
I'll just go ahead and I'll jump in. Thank you.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Pedraza. I appreciate that. I appreciate hearing about all that. Most of the slides said that there were 67 to 68 responses. That's out of how many participants approximately?
In terms of total faculty currently listed, we have 205. So it's unfortunately it's not half yet. But again, there's my growth mindset yet. Again, the survey I did push it out on Friday and then pushed it out again yesterday. But again, with it reopening on everybody's mind, I wanted to at least present what we had.
Of course, no, I appreciate that. I mean, there's always that in any survey. I appreciate that. So, and I guess, you know, where I'm coming from, you know, I hear there's just trying to figure out what was needed. And I saw on the 3 lists of the things, communication with the community. I hope that in all of this, I love the ideas behind it and love the way you walk us through it. I hope that there is going to be some real effort to really truly gain more than a cursory understanding of the parents' role in this, and again, communication with the parents. I think that from distance learning in the spring, there was a survey that was done with parents. I think it could have been, you know, in retrospect, it maybe could have been drafted a little bit more specifically to get at some more specifics, because I'm seeing, even though we're brand new in the school year, I'm seeing some of the same dynamics happening now that were sort of happening in the spring, and that's why I'm really concerned. So I know that we're just starting, but I'm seeing some of the same kind of, you know, you sort of not there's a forest for the trees issue that I'm seeing in terms of actually communicating what a child needs to be doing at a specific time or not. Is it asynchronous or is it synchronous? Do instructions communicated cover everything that I really need to know from a parent's perspective or not? Considering that I think that all the virtual learning, we all knew that distance learning was the only thing that was certain coming into this school year, right? The variable, what we didn't know about was how many or whether anybody would actually be learning in person. Distance learning was certain. And so I'm reiterating the concerns that I have about communication. I'm concerned that now that we're in a hybrid mode, I'm afraid that, I mean, already for this first week, I'm hearing that really what that means is students are getting half the learning because they're going to be in half the time, half of the actual work, half of the actual instructional period. And I'm really concerned about that, because that's something that we ostensibly did have time to look through and develop and plan. And it's part of why we delayed an opening. And so I hope, first of all, that teachers are getting more comfortable with the hybrid approach, because that's where we're going to be at the middle school and high school. And I know that there was a real concern there. But I hope that we also don't lose sight of what distance learning really looks like also to our elementary students. I have serious concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions for Mr. Pedraza tonight? Dr. McEwen? You're muted.
Yeah, I want to thank you for that, Mr. Pedraza, for taking us through the work and for keeping a powerful and consistent lens, you and our teaching staff on teaching and learning, with so much else to be thinking about and be concerned about. That I know our educators put that first and foremost, making sure that students learn and that they're engaged in learning and that they're successful in their learning wherever that takes place. And so that you've been able to offer professional learning from outside agencies, as well as have teachers work with one another, shows a level of trust that builds that collective efficacy that we know that teachers need to be able to make whatever system works. So I really appreciate that. I go on and on about everything that you put on the slides, but I won't, because I also appreciate that it's getting late and I want you guys to get your rest before you go at it another day. A couple of questions, I think, and this may go to Ms. Musella's point about the response rate for the survey, is just if I wonder if we could look at the response rates overall. One of the silver linings to come from all of this is the extended professional learning that we're seeing in this district and across the state and in other places. So the teachers have so much time on Mondays for some collective, for some common planning time, for their own individual planning, and then for their own professional learning. It would be really interesting to see how that develops them over time. And of course, to see how student engagement responses measure up against what teachers are learning. But I really appreciate the way that you've gone about doing this. This may again go into school committee suggestions for future agenda items, and I am not pushing that, and Mrs. Meyer and I will talk about it, I'm sure, when we talk more about her goals. But the first slide that you put up was our vision of a graduate who is knowledgeable, connected, reflected, and competent. And this environment gives us new ways to understand what that looks like. We thought we were preparing students for this future that we didn't understand, and the future is now. And through all of this, and even through all of the mishaps, we have this ability to learn. One of the most wonderful things that we're trying to teach our kids is a growth mindset that you referenced, and a way to persevere through any difficulties and make something great from something new, and make the best of sometimes challenging circumstances. So I think there's a lot that we're seeing right now that we see most definitely in our educators, and that we see most definitely in our students and our parents, that could inform that vision of a graduate. So I know we need to focus on other things right now, but it makes sense, I think, to keep that in mind as we move forward. So I do appreciate the work. I don't have children in the system anymore, so I can't, I don't know what's coming through and what people may be struggling with. So I certainly hear the concerns that others have raised. I'm sure you do, to that end, for us to continue to survey parents about and kids about communication, what they're getting, what they aren't, I think would be a reasonable way for us to assess truly how much of a concern those are and what we can do to overcome it.
Yep. So to that end, we do have in plan, in terms of bringing back in that professional development subcommittee and tying in the vision of the graduate, as well as then our reopening plans and those assurances, not only that we need to do because we gave those assurances, but also because they're the right things to do to make sure that all students are being successful. I'm also going to be bringing to the professional development subcommittee by the latest from the Learning Policy Institute, that with the framework for restarting and reinventing schools, Monica Martinez, obviously with the deeper learning, Linda Darlin Hamilton, Hammond, and that I really think that there's the potential for that synergistic work there, as well as then bringing in the responses for the community, that distance learning survey that we are going to give out at every single building once we've gotten through or have gotten through at least 2 weeks, and what we can establish and kind of clear out some of the cobwebs, so that we know so once we're connecting fully, once we have devices, or maybe if we don't, what are some of those barriers, and work from there. So we will be getting, again, that formative data coming in from the community and the response from the community at every single school and district wide. We'll have that going out. We'll then bring that committee back. We do have those opportunities, and with that New England Base Camp playlist that people have rated so highly, and get the PLUs that are actually doable within that second half of the day, as well as then the application. I think that there's definitely opportunity, and there will definitely be continued growth and improvement from everybody, as well as the furthering of the the vision of the graduate, which will then crosswalk to all of that work.
Great. Thank you so much for all of that. I appreciate it. Any other comments or questions from members of the committee? Ms. Powell.
Just because I kind of got out of order, I just wanted to, echo again what Ms. Musella said. So as a parent of 2 elementary students who are doing both, so they're in cohort B, and so they don't go to school until Thursday. They actually had a really good experience in the spring, and today was very, very different. And I know that was the plan, but I don't think I, as the parents, or they as kids, were quite ready for exactly how it was going to be different. And so, just as we said before, just keeping the lines of communication open, making sure that teachers have the ability to keep those lines of communication open with parents, because I really do think, even for my kids are in 2nd and 4th grade, it is a really good opportunity to really empower them and have them take some ownership as students of their education, even at this early stage. And it really, really will set the stage, pave the way for what they're going to be expected to do when they're older. And I think it's while it's very challenging, it's a really great opportunity. It's one of those silver linings of COVID, that we are getting to do this now a lot earlier than we otherwise would with a lot of kids. And I would hate to see it be a step back or make kids cautious or wary about wanting to take on or learn in this way, or learn in non-traditional ways, just because, as we're working out our kinks here, in the administration. So hopefully it will, like I said, it will smooth out. Just to really keep focus on that. I know it's so hard, looking at all of these pieces, but there are end users, and we just need to make it as easy and as fun for them as possible, being something new. So
Great.
And active as well.
Yes.
That's one of the pieces, that, especially with our youngest learners, we're caught in that, okay, well, we want to do synchronous and we want to be connecting with the class and getting the best from the teacher, but at the same time, we don't want it to be about looking at a screen. And so we need the kids to be, to be active. And so we need to make sure that our educators know they have permission, that even though we're synchronous, it doesn't mean that we can't do the asynchronous, that you can't go off and say, okay, when we've connected, you've gotten this, now go off and do, and come back with and show me.
Mm-hmm.
So making sure that we have the technology backbone, as well as they have the support of one another and of parents, and that we communicate that effectively. We can.
Mm-hmm. No, and that
make sure that happens.
That is great to hear, because no, I do agree. I think when there is that good balance of both, it seemed, at least in our house, to work really well. And I just want to just put a shout out, a really good thing today. My 4th grader came to me and she's like, it was so cool. We got to be the in class, even though we weren't at class, because the teacher projected us up on the whiteboard. And so everyone at home got to talk about everything. And so the kids in the physical class were sort of watching them, and they thought that was just the greatest thing ever, how everybody got to be sort of a on-screen class today. So I just thought that was really cool when she told me about it. So I wanted to just throw that out there. I know great things are happening, and I know that there's always, bumps in the road with something new, but I just hope that this does turn out to be something that we ultimately look back on and say that was great, and it helped us take, this big leap forward with how we, deliver education here. So
Great. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any other comments or questions for Mr. Pedraza? All right. Well, I just want to thank everybody for all of the great conversation tonight. To Mr. Pedraza and Mrs. Meyer, who, in addition to having to do all of the work in the district, being prepared to share with us also all of that work that is happening. So I'm very grateful to all of you. That is our last agenda item this evening. We do have school committee suggestions for future agenda items. I've certainly made a note about some of the additional information and feedback that folks would like to get for the September 29th conversation. So I have made a note of that. Is there anything else that anybody else would like to add? All right, well, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by Dr. McEwen. Seconded by Ms. Powell. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Roll call vote.
Allison Powell,
Hi.
Ann Musella,
Aye.
Carolyn Mark,
Aye.
Jean Quinn,
Aye.
Jeff Dronzek.
Aye.
Lori McEwen,
Aye.
Matt Plain.
Aye.
The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you to all of the members of the community that joined us this evening, and have a great night, everyone. We'll see you back here on the 29th.
Have a great night.
Good night.
Bye.